Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is David Talbot. I'm Managing Director and Head of Research here at Red Cloud Securities, and I'm delighted to host a Red Cloud webinar on uranium today. CanAlaska was my first webinar a year ago, and my first again this year, and the stock price is up 84% since. So, we're going to look forward to hearing from CanAlaska management, including Corey Bellick. He's the Executive VP and CEO. Congratulations on your promotion since the last time. And Peter Dazzler, president of the company. Now, during today's webinar, they will provide an overview and outlook. Then we will take some questions, and you can type your questions into the chat box at any time. We will get to as many as we can. But before we kick things off, first we need to discuss the fine print. Now, during this CanAlaska webinar, forward-looking statements may be made. I would direct listeners to their forward-looking statements outlined on page 2 of the CanAlaska corporate presentation, and that can be found on the company's website, canalaska.com. For Red Cloud Securities, I'd highlight this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note that this call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors, and participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. Please see our most recent research located on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures on CanAlaska. Now, before Corey and Peter step up, I would like to say a few words. We have seen the uranium price rebound already this year by about $4 to almost $46 a pound. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. First of all, we have the news from Kazakhstan, where civil unrest around the country was spurred by protests against fuel price hikes. And this expanded into general discontent about Kazakhstan's autocratic rule. Now, even at the peak of the protests last week, the political turmoil didn't impact key industries, and uranium exports were not halted, at least according to Kazatomprom, the world's largest producer. So the protests do appear to have settled down somewhat, and we don't expect any impact to uranium deliveries at the time. Now, of course, this is an example of what can happen to the uranium industry, given that the whole industry, the whole sector, is concentrated within so few countries, so few companies, and so few mines. So any disruptions to the industry really have an industry-wide impact. Now, generally, stocks have been mixed over the past week, with significant moves in both directions for various uranium companies. CanAlaska certainly remains in positive territory. As an exploration company, it's always a ways off from production. So worrying about spot prices and what things are doing in the short term isn't really what is driving the story. Now, we do continue to look towards Sprott Physical Uranium Trust as a catalyst in 2022. And, as a potential buyer with regulatory permission for another $2.2 billion in equity to raise, this could continue to tighten the market should they come and make some more purchases. And we would view this as very good news. However, we are still waiting for an increase in long-term contracting, and that should hopefully support prices on a sustainable basis. We would still love demand to be driven by end-user buying. Essentially the nuclear utilities that use 177 million pounds of uranium million pounds of uranium annually. And that's why we're here. So we also wanted to point out that the Selective Global Uranium and Nuclear Components Total Return Index, that's a mouthful, did make an announcement on January 10th. It pointed out that numerous companies are part of its coverage for consideration for upcoming selection. And a list of potential inclusions is long, but CanAlaska is amongst them. And this is important. The Selective Index is often used as the basis for uranium ETF buying of uranium companies, and we see that as a good thing. So with that, I now turn it over to Peter to make the introduction for the company. Peter.
Well, thank you very much, David. Yes, it is exciting times again. We've seen the market moving. I just want to welcome our investors. Over the last few months, we've been able to, seriously raise the funds that we need to get on our new 2022 projects, whether it's uranium or nickel. The team is financed, it's grown, and we can seriously attack all of these projects that we've had in our portfolio. Now, Corey's done a great job over the past 12 months, putting together this team, making some new discoveries for us, and starting to do deals that are going to be able to cover a lot of our overheads and give new opportunities for our shareholders to have investment success. I see that we've got a long way to go, but we are starting drill programs over these next weeks, so you'll see details coming of that. So I'd like to pass over to Corey. Forward-looking statements are there for you to have a look at. You know, we do expect a lot of things to happen in our space, and we are very excited about what can happen. So thank you very much for being with us. This information should give you some opportunities to think about your investing in 2022, and I hope it's with CanAlaska. So Corey, over to you. Give the detail of what we've got in our portfolio and what we're doing.
Well, thank you, Peter, and thank you, David, and the Red Cloud team. It's my pleasure to be here today to talk a lot about what we're doing in the next year and where we've actually come from. And, you know, another forward-looking statement, the title of this presentation, On the Cusp of Major Discoveries. And that's a bold statement, but it's based on what we've been able to do in the past, and most recently in 2021. We've had some incredible successes on our projects. We've got 3 new discoveries on three different projects from the 2021 work we did. We carried on at West McArthur, drilled additional high-grade mineralization. We drilled polymetallic uranium mineralization, our Waterbury South project. That's a brand new discovery. And we continued to add multiple zones of new mineralization at our Moon Lake South project with Denison. So it's been an exciting year for us, and we see a lot of opportunity in front of us in 2022, coupled with some of the staking we've done in the prospect generator phase and some of the deals to bring in outside investment to move these projects forward. The corporation is structured very well. We sit currently at 100 million shares outstanding, fully diluted 144 million. We've come through a financing in Q4 that sees us with 15.7 million in the bank, and the market's starting to move. This week, again, it's up around $45, $46 a pound. CanAlaska is moving with it. Are you ready for the upturn? We believe CanAlaska is ready for the upturn, and we're really excited about the structure of this company and what it's going to do in this market. We've been busy building out the team. We continue to add the right people to do the right work to make those discoveries and build on this discovery success we had in 2021. Most importantly is bringing in Nathan Bridge, new vice president for us. He's moving things forward on the technical side. Some really good talent with another geologist, Greg Goodmanson, out of the Uranium system. These 2 individuals are leading the team here towards what we believe is a very exciting 2022. And we have great support at the board level and all through this organization with over 140 years of experience just in the Athabasca Basin. It's an incredible story developing on the technical and corporate side of the equation. We pride ourselves on being that active explorer and project generator, really deploying a hybrid model. We like to evaluate, pick up land, do deals, bring in that third-party funding, all geared towards minimizing the dilution that we have to take to move our agenda forward, but maximizing that capital gain for our shareholders. We're very active in the uranium space, the nickel space in the nearby province of Manitoba, and also copper projects in Manitoba and British Columbia. Again, 300,000 hectares in the uranium space alone, all geared toward that Tier 1 discovery. We had a great 2021. We started by drilling our copper project in BC. We hit low-grade mineralization in the first program there with our new partner, Almanica. We followed it up in February with drilling at Waterbury South, where we intersected a brand new discovery announced in the spring of 2021. In the summer, we went back into our West McArthur project, made additional discoveries, and expanded the opportunity there at West McArthur with work that we carried out a few kilometers away from the 42 zone. Incredible story involving. And then Moon Lake South, the new joint venture with Denison. Again, new discoveries. We've been very active in 2021, and we've been very good at discovering some new things along the way. The business case for uranium, well, it's out there. You know, if the world wants to realize its dream of clean energy production, it's going to have to generate a lot more electricity. It's going to have to be clean. That really comes from nuclear as baseload power. And estimates throw it at needing to be about triple what it is today by the year 2050. That doesn't come without new uranium discoveries. Small modular reactors, they're out there in the news now. These things, when they go into new markets, smaller markets where these large reactors historically haven't been able to go, you're going to need even more uranium. And that means more discovery required and ultimately deposits put into production. We're focused on that. Our portfolio is geared towards the clean energy metals, uranium, copper, nickel, but we're really focused on uranium. We've got 300,000 hectares of land in the eastern, some in the western Athabasca Basin. We picked up about 100,000 more hectares back in September as we looked toward what was coming in the market. These are pieces of land where we see the geological story is correct. We've got the nearby Thompson Nickel Belt just in the neighboring province of Manitoba. This is the 5th largest nickel jurisdiction on the planet. We've assembled an incredible portfolio in the nickel space. alone in Manitoba that we're trying to move forward. But let's look at uranium. Our target scenarios in our portfolio span shallow, mid-depth, and deep targets geared towards a McArthur, Cigar, Phoenix, Arrow, or Eagle Point analog. Anything from outside the basin margins in our Northeast Wall scenario, like an Eagle Point model or an Arrow model, all the way to things like McArthur River in the deeper sandstone. Now, this is an advantage in some ways in the deeper sandstone because these deposits, when they form, create these large alteration halos, and we can use that to vector into the mineralization and work on these projects toward that discovery. We've got one at our West McArthur project. We just finished that program in mid to late November. We've got tier 1 indications. It matches the alteration system associated with the 42 zone at West McArthur, matches what we might see at Cigar Lake. They're the same similar scale. In fact, it's larger at 42 zone. It's wider, it's higher. There you can see the Eiffel Tower for scale. This is an alteration system. It's 300 meters wide. It goes 6, 7, 8, 900 meters up into the sandstone and extends for quite a distance on strike, several kilometers. This looks like what we see at Cigar Lake or McArthur River. We're already drilling 8% uranium in these drill holes. This past year, we focused back in on the 42 zone area and some of that new exploration corridor that we talked about earlier in the year from the work in 2020. We wanted to build on that story at 42 zone that is part of the Fox Lake trend, Cameco's Fox Lake deposit. Again, 70 million pounds at 8%. We're already drilling 8% uranium at the 42 zone. Now we're expanding the exploration space to the southeast from 42 zone, again, looking for multiple zones along that C10 corridor, that structural corridor that's associated with Fox Lake or the 42 zone. Again, we're 12 kilometers away from McArthur River. You can see it on the right. We can drive here year round. That's the ore haul road from McArthur down to Cameco's Key Lake operation. We intersected new mineralization, expanded the target space. That was our goal for our drilling program in 2021, is to go back into 42 zone, build that out a little bit further, and test these new target areas, A, B, and C, for up to 2 to 3 kilometers to the southwest, looking again for that large structure, indications of that large alteration system that's hosted with these large deposits. At 42 zone, we intersected brand new extensions of that mineralization at 42 zone. Here we are on the left-hand side. That's our new intercept, which was announced back in, I believe, December. 10 meters of 0.76%. But look at the difference, all things being equal, to the hole that we had in the prior year in 2019, where we drilled that 8% uranium. This is an even wider zone of mineralization, and we've extended it for several tens of meters outward from what we knew historically at 42 zones. So this is an incredible result for us. Again, assays are pending on this. We had a lot of core loss through the highest portion of that mineralization, as you can see on this slide. So we're gonna wait and see our assays and report that to market. So it's an incredible opportunity moving forward for additional discovery in the 42 zone. 1.8 kilometers away from 42 zone, we found the large structure that's associated with 42 zone of the Fox Lake deposit. This is what we're looking for. Several fault zones over tens of meters in the basement with strong alteration. This has opened up multiple new targets for several kilometers long from the 42 zone, which is just like McArthur River. McArthur River has 6, 7 pods of mineralization over several kilometers. That's the deposit. That's what we're looking for. These classic pearls on a string, but they're very high-grade pearls. That's what we're looking for. Based on the results of 42 zone and based on the results for 1.8 kilometers to the southwest, we've now doubled our exploration budget for 2022 at $5 million, which we announced to market. So this is why we're excited about West McArthur. It's an incredible opportunity. We've expanded the exploration space away from just the 42 zone, although we continue to build out 42 zone, all creating these new uranium targets along this very productive and fertile mineralized corridor that's host to Fox Lake, 42 zone, and hopefully some others. Cameco still has a need. They've got the Key Lake Mill. It's $1 billion asset. It needs feed. We're 12 kilometers away from the McArthur River infrastructure. Imagine a world where 20% of the global uranium production is lost within the next 15 years. So that's Cigar Lake running out of ore, McArthur River running out of ore. That's within 15 years from today. So that's an incredible strategic opportunity for CanAlaska, being so near to this production center with a partner that is Cameco on the West McArthur project. What else did we do in 2021? Well, we went over to the Cigar Lake area in our Waterbury South project. We drilled the Waterbury South project in Q1 of last year, and we made a new discovery. This is just 10 kilometers away from the Cigar Lake mine. This is an incredible target. This new discovery is exactly what you want to see around one of these polymetallic uranium mineralized zones, like Cigar, like Midwest, like Key Lake. It's opened up a 5-kilometer target corridor that isn't drilled with mineralization, uranium, 100 times background. But importantly, you've got 2.5% nickel, you've got 2.5% arsenic, zinc, cobalt mineralization just above or around the unconformity, with a large alteration system, 200 meters up in the sandstone, 400 meters wide, and we don't know the extent on strike. This is an incredible target. Why are we excited about this when we have all this nickel and arsenic and cobalt? Because this looks like Cigar Lake. This is an illustration on the left taken from real work in 2017, where it shows the offset on the top in the yellow. This is an image of the Cigar Lake ore body on the left-hand side. It's just like an egg. The yellow is the nickel mineralization. The red is the high-grade uranium mineralization within Cigar Lake. There's an offset. The star is for reference. The star is where we believe we are at Waterbury South. Think of it like an egg. Around the high-grade uranium mineralization, you get your low-grade uranium, you get a lot of nickel and a lot of cobalt. It's zoned. These deposits are zoned. We could be literally 50 meters away from high-grade uranium mineralization when you're getting grades of nickel in the 2-3% range. This is an incredible opportunity. We believe we're on the fringes of a large mineralizing event, and we're drilling that starting this month. Again, strategic opportunity for Waterbury South. Cameco's Rabbit Lake Mill sits idle. We're 2 kilometers away with this project off the Cigar Lake Haul Road. Cigar Lake has about 7 to 8 years of life left. The McLean Lake Mill, Orano's McLean Lake Mill, will need feed when Cigar Lake is finished 7 years from now. So there's, again, an opportunity for CanAlaska, 2 kilometers off the Cigar Lake Haul Road, to find an asset that can help the needs of Orano or Cameco or help feed these mills. In addition, in 2021, we made new discoveries at our Moon Lake South joint venture with Denison Mines. This is a brand new joint venture just in the last 6 months. Our first program went out and expanded the known mineralization that was intersected a few years ago with 2 new areas of mineralization along what is a 4-kilometer corridor of a target corridor. So again, 2 new uranium zones identified. This is the 3rd project with mineralization in our portfolio in 2021. We're waiting to talk to Denison about the next steps on this project. It's an incredible opportunity moving forward close to their Griffin deposit and their Wheeler River project. We've been busy adding new opportunities to our portfolio for the shareholders, staking new ground. We have our Cree East project, which is sitting there waiting for that right investment partner to come in and help us advance that. We've added, as I said, about 100,000 hectares of land to our portfolio over the last number of months. Cree East in particular, this is an older project, but it has 2 really well-developed zones of mineralization. It actually has 9 zones of mineralization on it, but 2 of them are well advanced to the point of being drill ready, and we're just 40 kilometers from that Key Lake Mill. We're waiting for that right opportunity, that right partner to come in and help us invest in the next round of exploration. This is 100% owned by CanAlaska, and it's got great targets on it that look every bit like the Waterbury South project. Zones A and B, again, polymetallic mineralization with the uranium enrichment mineralization. This is a Cigar Lake, a Key Lake, a Waterbury South type set of targets on our Cree East, on our very large Cree East project. This project's the size of Greater Toronto. It's an incredible piece of property with a lot of prospectivity, already with zones of mineralization identified. We also were busy doing an option with a prospector to get access to the Key Lake fault. The Key Lake area is host historically to 150 to 200 million pounds of uranium, just 15 kilometers away from this project. We have the extension of the Key Lake fault, that controlling structure for that mineralization on this property. We have a 10-kilometer corridor, which we're going to target later in the year with our drilling program. And this will be in the fall. So this is an incredible opportunity to test the Key Lake fault, very sparsely drilled. Hasn't had a round of current exploration methodology applied to it, looking for that basement type target, an Arrow and Eagle Point outside the basin margins. North Millennium, again, new staking. We've recognized the main structural controls, the Cameco's Millennium deposit. We believe that trends onto our property, not drill tested. This is conceptual, but it has all the indications of what we want to see. The structure appears to be in the geophysics. This is available for a joint venture partner. Our Geikie project, newly staked, newly announced. It's in proximity to 92 Energy and Baseload's project, where they're having all that success in the last number of months. We've got 6 targets already identified, exact same geology, exact same concepts as what's providing success for these companies in the area. We've already got mineralization identified on our project up to 0.23% uranium. So this is, again, right rocks, right place, right structures in the Eastern Athabasca, and waiting for that joint venture partner to come forward. We announced our Carswell project. Again, new staking in the last number of months. This is a structural scenario, just like the nearby Shea Creek deposit of Orano and UX, near the Clough Lake mine. This is the exact structural scenario where these large Athabasca Basin type unconforming deposits form. We picked this ground up, again, waiting for a joint venture partner to come in. We have a part 2 to CanAlaska, and we've been very focused as well through the low uranium period on developing an incredible nickel sulfide asset in the Thompson Belt, the 5th largest belt of rocks in the for nickel on the planet. We've got a price in nickel that's reached, I think today, just a 10-year high. So nickel is clearly on our radar. This was nice to build out during the low uranium price. We've assembled an incredible portfolio. We've done deals in the Thompson Belt, and we're moving these projects forward. In fact, we've done some new staking in the last couple of months here. We're excited to be drilling in Q1 with our new partner, Metal Energy, on our Manabridge project as they earn into that project at the southwest end of the belt, just 100 kilometers from Thompson itself, or Valley Smelter. Again, we've got other projects in the belt that are all available for joint venture funding, and we're looking forward to the future in the nickel space as that continues to improve. We've been busy with staking in the Thompson Belt, as I mentioned. We've recently picked up 2 projects, for example, 32 kilometers of mineralized structure, advanced geophysics. We've been applying it to both the resting and the halfway lake claims that we staked earlier in 2021. Again, all geared towards that clean energy battery supply in what is going to be an incredible commodity future for sulfide nickel. So we're really, really picking up some nice land in the nickel space. We've also got copper. We drilled our Mouse Mountain project, or Amanika drilled our Mouse Mountain project and intersected copper high up in the system. So that looks pretty good in the Quesnel Trough. We've also got an incredible project right near the Rutan copper zinc mine in Manitoba. The target is the same size, same character as the Rutan mine. Very sparsely drilled, already showing signs of mineralization. So we've got copper in our portfolio, high value copper project. So again, uranium, nickel, and copper, all geared towards that clean energy future. So just to summarize, in 2022, we've got an incredible lineup of drilling planned. We're getting out there this week at Waterbury South to continue drilling on that discovery that looks every bit like a Cigar Lake analog. Later in Q1, we'll be in the Manabridge project in Manitoba with our partner Metal Energy, drilling the nickel project to try and advance that forward. In the summer, we plan on getting into West McArthur, again, doubling our budget year over year, $5 million planned at West McArthur, again, to follow up 42 zone and some of that, those new indications a couple kilometers away along strike where we have that large structure, incredible alteration system that is part of that Fox Lake 42 zone mineralizing system. And we're getting into that new project right near Key Lake, again, just outside the basin, targeting Eagle Point or Arrow analog along that prolific Key Lake structure. So, you know, an incredible year in front of us. We continue to do deals through 2022 and generate projects where it makes sense. We do have deals coming down that we will wrap up, in particular with Terra Uranium, which we announced sort of mid last year. That should see drilling in the middle part of 2022 as well. So we've got an incredibly full portfolio of drilling in front of us with lots of news flow, drilling on discoveries that we made in 2021, and we're going to move those forward in 2022. So CanAlaska truly does tick all the boxes. We're advancing new discoveries. We've got a whole pile of different projects that are responding to our exploration, and we'd invite you to visit www.canalaska.com to learn a little bit more. So I thank you for your time, and I hope that I've been able to show you that we believe we're on the cusp of major discoveries, particularly in the Athabasca Basin of Saskatchewan, and we're going to really work hard to build out the successes we've had in 2021 in 2022. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and I guess we'll now take some questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Peter, Corey. Great presentation as always. We're now going to step into our Q&A portion of the webinar. Reminder to everyone online, you can type your questions into the chat box and we will get to as many as we can. So we already have a few questions here, guys. I guess starting with McArthur, West McArthur, sorry. You have high-grade mineralization at the 42's area zone. And extensive alteration above this. Now, how do you turn these indicators of a large mineralizing system into potentially economic uranium hits?
Well, we use the alteration, let's say, profile or what we're seeing in the drill core to help us move around and vector and really zoom into where we believe the highest grade portion might exist for the uranium deposition. So we've been drilling 8% uranium historically. We've drilled similar to that this year, and the zone is actually getting wider and coupled with some really strong alteration. So you continue to move around and follow your nose. It's very much using your experience and following your nose. Use the chemistry, look at the rocks, and think about what's controlling that mineralization. So we're working on that story. 42 zone continues to evolve, and we're incredibly encouraged that we've been able this year to extend the 42 zone at similar grade to what we had historically, and also that it's become wider. And I think that's a key. It's become wider than we've seen historically, which could be an indication of the event that we're getting into. So it's an incredible story evolving at 42 zone. It continues to evolve. And yeah, it's really about sleuthing.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think you've found that key structural target yet? Is it a matter of just finding that target, following it up to the unconformity?
Well, David, I wish it was that simple. It isn't always, but one of the things you need in these large unconforming mineralizing events is a large structure. If you don't have the structure, you don't have a large deposit, period. So what we're really encouraged by beyond 42 zone, and that was one of our main drivers in this year's exploration, was finding where that large structure exists to the southwest. Because if you look at a deposit like Cigar or McArthur, you have multiple zones of mineralization over a couple of kilometers. And that's what we need to form these large deposits. So we're encouraged by the fact that we're seeing, 50, 60, even 70 meters of structure and alteration deep into the basement, 1.8 kilometers southwest of the 42 zone. It opens up an incredible opportunity for more exploration space. We're seeing the right indications of the mineralizing event happening. Now, where's the uranium? And that's the key, finding out where that uranium has stopped and formed a deposit. They all form in these pearls along a string. They're very high-grade pearls in the uranium space, but they all form in this manner no matter which deposit you look at. So we're really encouraged by what we've seen to the southwest. An incredible opportunity opening up that exploration space.
Exactly. And what was really the key indicator to the southwest? This is about a 3-kilometer long trend, and you've started drilling 1.8 kilometers away. What really opened up the southwest to you?
So what opened up the southwest was the work we did in 2020. We went in, we revisited some of the old drill holes because we're like, where is this structure going? Where is the main fault system that's host to 42 zone, that's host to the Fox Lake deposit? We didn't have a handle on where that was, and we found it, and we found indications of it. So we followed that up this year with our drilling to test those ideas that it's sitting just over there. And that's what we have. We've got an incredible fault zone developing that we didn't know was there just 6 months ago. Right. So that's where we've opened up the exploration space, because you need that large structure. The fact that large structure has an incredible alteration system associated with it, both in the sandstone but deep in the basement, tells us we're in the right space and we're seeing the right things 1.8 kilometers away from 42 zone. So here we go with developing that pearls on a string concept. Now, where is the uranium stopping? That's the next step.
Right. And now it's time to find it. So, you've doubled your West McArthur budget for 2022. What will $5 million get us?
Peter, did you want to
let me make a
comment first?
Let me make a comment. In the early days, when you go looking for these types of targets, you use some broad focused geophysics, which says this area compared to that area has had a lot of fluid flow, but you're still, a quarter of a mile apart from hitting the actual targets. What Corey just explained is that back in about 2007, we drilled a hole well to the south of the 42 zone before we knew this 42 zone had this very high grade mineralization. And very deep in the system, there was a fault zone. Now, when Corey could line up the fault zones that we had in the 42 zone, he could match it up with this. And so when he went into there in September, he drilled a little bit further to the west and hit this massive zone near surface that shows all the indications of what we see in the 42 zone. Now we've got enough drill holes to vector in. We've actually closed this quarter mile or 400 or 500 meter gap down to a 10-meter gap. And so with the funding that we've got now, we can go back in there and put 4 or 5 holes into that. And that was the real key for that. You had to be very cautious in the early days because those holes were expensive and the market wasn't there to fund it. The market's there now to fund it. And I think as we progress on here, we'll see other people interested in what we're doing. So we've got the key indicator, the key structure, and now we're seeing the mineralization. And as Corey says, it's pearls in the string. I'm excited with that. I'm excited with Waterbury South on the same thing. And then what Denison just did, they found 3 zones on our moon property. Very first holes in each of those zones hit uranium. So we're de-risking multiple projects at the same time, and we're going to be drilling multiple projects this year with our money and other people's money. And so I'm pretty excited for success opportunities. Some people also asked here on the thing, do we have funding? Are we making any money? By optioning out projects to other people, we bring in cash into our company. Our main source at the moment is by equity, but also by doing property deals, we can earn $500,000 to $1 million a year on project expenses. So I wanted to address those 2 things. We're focused in, we've got some money coming in, but we've got multiple targets for discovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love spending other people's money for sure. You mentioned others will get excited at what you're doing. Obviously, you mean investors, but do you also mean industry? Is this something that is this a project, West McArthur in particular, a project that you can actually see somebody in and coming and either doing a joint venture, buying it outright? This seems to be, at least right now, seems to be your flagship project. Is it for sale?
Everything is always for sale, I say, but it's at the price. I think what's happened over the last year is we've significantly advanced the opportunities at West McArthur. And it's getting to the stage where our drill programs indicate there's a tier 1 discovery somewhere in the woods here. And can we make it? Or should we give someone else the opportunity to spend the $20 to $40 million that would be required to do that? It's all a matter of balance. If the market's with us, with our drill hole discoveries, we can advance it a lot further before we eventually look at selling it. We're not here for a 20-year program to put a mine in production, or certainly I'm not. But our shareholders want to know what our time frame for discovery is and the time frame for their success. And with drill holes into high-grade uranium, you only have to look at the example of NextGen. I think 3 months to 6 months, they went from 25 million to 100 million to 300 million to $1 billion value. And that's really what uranium in the Athabasca does. We've seen it happen multiple times. We're positioned for that. Should we sell one of our projects, even West McArthur, a joint venture partner would have to have first rights there. But we can easily move on to our Cree East project, which is just as large with just as many targets and only half the depth. A lot cheaper for our Corey to drill that one and have quicker success. So I think you should watch what's happening though on Waterbury South this month.
Okay. You're jumping around on me. I'll get to some of those, but I think before we get that, we're talking about budgets a second ago. What is your corporate cash position, and what's your total exploration budget corporate wide? Can you cover your plans for this year with what you've got?
Yeah, David, we have 15.7 today in the bank after our successful raise last year. That's going, a bunch of that's flow through, so that's going to go directly into our projects this year. We do have enough, but we'll take more if the market's there for it. what do we plan for this year? Well, we've got McArthur, West McArthur, we've got Waterbury South, we've got Key Extension, among a few other tidbits. So, you know, those all together are pushing into the 7, maybe 8 million range for this year. And that's just the line of sight that we see right now. So success will dictate whether we need to take more or not. And we're certainly well funded. We're well positioned for what we want to do this year. But if the market's there, then maybe we'll add a little bit. But yeah, we're sitting in pretty good shape.
Okay. And maybe could you give us a little bit of color on insider share ownership? Are you guys buying shares on the open market?
It's difficult for us to buy over the last couple of months because we were financing. We're never allowed to buy in those situations, and we're never allowed to buy while there's pending news. So you don't actually see us buying a lot in the open market because there's something happening all the time. But we have increased our share positions by exercising stock options over the past year and holding those stock options. So yes, we're still holding our positions. And management, generally now, it's around about 7%, I think, at the current time. I haven't done the numbers over the last month.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Waterbury South. Now, that's a great egg analogy. I'd never seen that before.
Thanks to Peter.
Thank you for that. I'm hungry now. You see nickel and copper, sorry. Do you see other relatively common indicators such as moly or cobalt as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, David. Yeah, it's a suite of, it's polymetallic. So you see molybdenum, you see cobalt, you see nickel. The arsenic comes along with nickel as a nickel arsenide. That's very common in the Athabasca deposits like this. But you know, it's a zonation effect. So it's chemistry, right? So as these elements drop out with the chemical processes that precipitate the uranium, you get a separation, albeit slight, but there's a separation between the nickel and the uranium. They are associated in places, don't get me wrong, but there is a distinct zonation that occurs. And there's a lot of examples through all these deposits, economic or otherwise, where this occurs. It's chemistry. So what I tried to point out with Cigar Lake was that you see that zonation. It's an offset of about 50 meters, really, between where you get the high-grade nickel and arsenic with low-grade uranium or just ppm level uranium versus the 40% uranium. We're talking 50 meters. And what I'm excited about, and I think the team here supports and is really excited about, is the fact that we're getting 2.5% nickel and the arsenic and the cobalt and the zinc and some of these other things that we see common at Cigar at Waterbury South with 100 times the background uranium in that hole. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but you got to remember 50 meters away is Cigar Lake if you put it into that model. So that's one of the keys here. And we're seeing deep alteration in the basement of 100 plus meters at Waterbury South. Deep alteration. That doesn't occur everywhere. And you only find it in these large hydrothermal events that deposit the uranium. So I know this is a bit technical and I apologize, but the point is it's really like an egg. And we think we're on the fringes of that egg where we get the low-grade uranium with the high-grade nickel and arsenic, among others. And if we just continue to follow our nose and sleuth, we're going to find where the uranium sets up in that chemistry. And that's the key. And that's why we're excited, because we can't think of an analog, honestly, can't think of an analog in the Athabasca Basin where you get this level of nickel enrichment and mineralization, not just in the basement, but in the sandstone, in the absence of something significant around you. That's a bold statement, but I and the team cannot think of an analog where that's occurred. So it's exciting for us. It's a big step for us.
Yeah. Okay. No, great. You pretty much answered my next question, which, you know, you're using these polymetallic elements to vector towards the center of the source, much like you do with the clay alteration and zonation.
Absolutely. The clay alteration is this big halo that gets us interested in 10 kilometers. The metals, the polymetallic metals like nickel, arsenic, cobalt, among others, and uranium, get us interested in the 3 or 4 kilometers. Or in certain cases, when it gets high enough grade nickel, you're down to 100 meters. Then you know you're close to where the event should occur, and that's the key. So these are the tools that we use to vector into these large deposits. And we've got 3 projects right now, 4 if you include Cree East, that are responding to our exploration in this very manner. and that's exciting. That's exciting for a company of our structure and our history and our portfolio. It's an incredible portfolio.
And what's your budget for Waterbury South this year?
It's internal, but I'll say we're looking somewhere between $1 to $1.5 million. Yeah.
Good. Sounds good.
There's enough drill hole in that, David, to pepper the egg.
Yeah.
Pepper the egg. Yeah.
Pepper the egg.
Lightly pepper the egg.
Yeah. Fair enough. Good. Okay. Cree Lake, another huge are you focused on research work, regional work there at the moment? Still looking for new target areas, or might you look at zone A and B with a little bit more of a magnifying glass, trying to find a discovery at something, at a pre-existing target, let's say?
Well, Cree East, it's a large project with lots of zones. Zones A and Zone B are really, they look like Waterbury South. They look like what we're seeing at West McArthur. But, Fukushima changed that project and put it on the shelf. We don't have any landholding problems there or issues. So that can sit for the right partnership to evolve. If the market says that we should go there and explore it ourselves, absolutely. But right now, we've got West McArthur responding to our exploration. We've got Waterbury South responding to our exploration. We've got our partnership with Denison responding to our exploration. Cree East is there. It's important. But, we'd love to bring in the right partnership because we own it 100%. The right partnership that will take it to that next level of understanding for zones A and zones B. And we'd love to see a partner come in with, $15 million, $20 million to help move it to the next step. It's already seen $20 million and has developed 9 zones of mineralization or interest on it, every bit like what we see elsewhere. So, would love to find the right partnership. Again, right partnership to help move that forward.
Yeah. And you guys have been doing that for 20 plus years. Looking for the right partner.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's taken some time, David, but I hope that we get that overnight success that everyone expects. At Cree East, I have to point out that right at Fukushima, we were drilling what we believe could have been a discovery hole, and we left that hole halfway at the unconformity. It was 400 meters down to the unconformity, 200 meters down. We had the casing in, had the drill going forward, and we ran out of season, literally the 7th of August. We had to leave. And so we had a half-finished hole for 4 years thinking we'd get back to it, and we haven't got back to it. It's 10 years later. But that hole was going to a very interesting polymetallic target with a large offset of the unconformity, quartz ridge, everything you want. And it's pretty spectacular. If you look at the sections we put on the slideshow, you'll see that polymetallic mineralization, nickel, cobalt, moly, along with that. That's a brilliant target.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things have changed over the last 20 years. Over the last 10 years, these basement-hosted deposits are relatively new. You're looking at Rough Rider was probably the first one, and Arrow and Fission, and there's a few others out there that Griffin that were not around at that time. So, basement-hosted deposits near surface. That's a often talked about. That recent baseload E92 discovery area. I believe you guys mentioned earlier in the talk that you've staked ground around that discovery. So what are your plans for that area? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, so David, that Geikie project, that's what we call it, along the Geikie River, that sits adjacent to Baseload's Hook Lake property. That's directly adjacent to it to the east. Again, and ultimately 92 Energy's obviously their zone too. So we're within a few kilometers of where let's call it the local recent action is in the discovery space on what is a really interesting model. And what I tried to show you was that we staked Geikie because we saw that evolving. We saw the market change and went, here's a piece of land that has all the same targets on it right next door. Neurology, if you want to call it that. That's, that's, you should always pay attention to that because it's real. Yep. But before we stake anything, the team and I, we always want to make the geology make sense. We don't want moose pasture. We want the right geology. And that's what we focused in there and went, look, this is responding to their exploration efforts. We can generate a new project here. What do we want to do with it, David? We want to bring in a partnership if we can to help move that forward. That's 100% owned by CanAlaska. It's a new project. We can bring in another party that wants to help move that forward with us, earn into that investment. So I think there's an example of where we can bring money back into CanAlaska, share the risk, and yet ultimately share the discovery potential. And I think that's the hybrid model we've been working under for so long. That's been so successful for us.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Drillers, hard to find. Do you have all your rigs lined up for all your projects this year?
We have our rigs for obviously Waterbury South. We have our rigs for Manabridge in Manitoba. We are close to having our rigs set for West McArthur in the summer, and also Key Extension, which will come a little later, but we're pretty confident that won't be an issue given location and accessibility. So yes, David, we're well set up, we believe, for 2022.
Okay, sounds good. I guess probably last question on Saskatchewan specifically. Three mills in Saskatchewan. We've got Key Lake, Rabbit Lake, and McLean. Only the latter is operating these days. What is the excess capacity for milling in Saskatchewan, and are there any challenges as far as tailings or even access to these sites?
Well, that's a question for the owners of those mills, I think, David. But what I will say on capacity is you've got I think Key Lake's licensed for 24 million pounds. I think you've got McLean licensed in that similar range. Let's say 20 plus 22. Let's say, and then you've got Rabbit Lake sitting there, which I think used to be licensed for around 12. So you're looking at 60 to 65 million pounds of capacity in the Eastern Athabasca sitting idle, potentially in 15 years. It takes a discovery today 15 years to go into production. So I think that paints the scenario of the importance of discovery in the Eastern Athabasca, and where CanAlaska's land position in the east up against all that infrastructure with projects responding like they are provides an incredible opportunity 15 years out to provide that next feed for these operations. Because honestly, there's no tier one deposit identified in the Eastern Athabasca at present that I'm aware of.
Right. Okay. Now you guys are concentrating on uranium and nickel. Are there other commodities you might consider exploring for or acting as a project generator?
We're opportunistic, David. We have our diamond projects, which you're probably aware of in the basin. The conceptual play that looks really interesting. We've got copper, obviously. My perspective is that if there's opportunity there to build value for shareholders, we'll look at it. It doesn't mean we're going to spend our uranium money on the targets, but we can generate projects, bring outside investment, preserve upside for CanAlaska shareholders. If that opportunity arises, why not? But our forte is uranium. That's what we love to do. That's what we want to do, and that's what we are doing. So,
okay, you said uranium money, but money at least used to be made out of nickel too. You're doing geophysics there. Would you be considering any drilling for the commodity? Especially while investors are interested in nickel.
Yeah, stay tuned on that. We've been doing some geophysics in the nickel space, really to develop the targets, because in order to attract the outside investment, you do have to do a little bit of work to develop that story, develop the targets to the point where the outside investment comes. So stay tuned there. I think what's really interesting about our nickel portfolio is we're second to Vale in the Thompson Belt. We have an incredible land package, and it's not just real estate like Moose Pasture. It's not just real estate for real estate. We're very conscious about the targets that we go out and stake, the history of those targets, and the potential upside of those targets. And we're really happy to be bringing in the outside investment and the partnership from Metal Energy at Manabridge, which we'll see drilling in 2022 and hopefully moving that forward. So we're really excited about finding partnerships that make sense for us to move these things onward. So.
Right. Okay. Now you have your commodity diversification. Would you consider jurisdictional diversification as well? Step out beyond Saskatchewan, Manitoba, maybe BC?
Well, in the uranium space, I don't think there's a need to, David. We've got an incredible land package. This is tier one country. This is, with my history, this is the best place to find tier one uranium deposits in a safe place. To be honest, in a safe place. These, when you find them, in the Athabasca Basin displace literally everything around the planet. Kazakhstan might be special, but when you find a cigar, McArthur, or even an Arrow, if you want to put it in that category, you displace all the other tier 2, tier 3 deposits that need $65+ per pound to even think about putting into production. It's just the best place to be for uranium. And when you talk about nickel, how can you argue against being in the 5th largest sulfide nickel belt on the planet in Manitoba? Do we need to diversify? I don't think so. We're in great jurisdictions already. Again, if the opportunity arises and it makes sense, sure. But in the uranium space, the basin's the place to be. Period.
Right. Okay. Yeah, just before we wrap up here a little bit, maybe a couple, bigger sky items here. With the U.S. emphasis on green technologies, do you see an interest in nuclear power shifting? Do you see any obstacles that are holding back further support for nuclear?
Well, I see the change happening already. Both the Republicans and the Democrats are very clear about building out the nuclear capabilities in the U.S. and also exporting U.S. nuclear capabilities to other countries like India. I think they've signed agreements there now and into Europe. That's happening. There's also a big change in public perception and public desire for a cleaner energy than burning coal. We're not going to displace coal. We're not going to displace oil for a long, long time, but we're going to add to the nuclear fleet. The Chinese are already doing that. So the system's already happening. The way I see it, it's cost. If you want to build a very large nuclear power plant, you've got to have a lot of financing ready, and it's got to be government backed. But building small nuclear power plants, new scale type ones, the SMRs, can be done with current industry. So I see that advancing a lot of things for us. And of course, we know there's lots of uranium in the world. You can go get uranium out of seawater, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. And so what Corey was saying about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, these tier 1 deposits can make money at, $40, $50 a pound easily. Tier 2 and tier 3, you're pushing $65, $85, over $100 a pound. So it's how much people want to pay for the uranium. And I'd rather be in the jurisdiction where we can produce tier 1 uranium at, $30 a pound when it's selling for hundreds of dollars a pound. So there's a perception change. There's a change in the build out of nuclear power plants. The demand cannot be satisfied with our existing mines. And so we have to find new mines.
Great. You guys are great at these segues. You're asking, you're leading me right into my question. So final question today. Need your crystal ball. What's your uranium price outlook over the next 5 years? We're sitting at 45 and change today.
Where see it?
On this. I'm very high.
Yeah, David, I always, I'm trying to stay consistent in this. Given the jurisdiction that we're in and the targets that we're after and we think that we're on, I would love to see the price stop around $60 to $65 a pound. And I'll tell you why. Because it keeps out all the other players in the tier 2, tier 3 space and keeps the investment focused on the Athabasca, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I would like to see it land, is higher than today, but not so high that you bring in all the noise from around the world. That just doesn't make sense, to be honest.
So we want sustainable price rising.
Sustainable price rise, and I think that's good for everyone, and in particular CanAlaska shareholders, because it will keep the attention on that tier 1 discovery in the basin, which is ultimately what we're focused on, and we're building the team around that. We bring in people that understand that tier 1 model, that tier 1 target. We're not chasing low grade stuff. We're chasing that tier 1, home run hit, and we're seeing so many signposts in our portfolio that suggest we've got that at least near to us, and we're happy to continue that effort. And that keeps it focused on the basin around $60, $65 a pound, and that's where we're active. That's what I'd like to see.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Peter and Corey from CanAlaska, for speaking to us today. Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in. Reminder that Red Cloud Securities will be back tomorrow afternoon. We're going to sit down with Empress Royalty. That's January 13th at 2 p.m. Eastern. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, and Red Cloud.